How do you take a majority Muslim country and flip them to support Trump's Gaza dreams of a resort with condos everywhere? It's pretty easy. Cash. And let me say this up front. I'm not going to get dragged into a 100-year debate about Zionism or Arab nationalism or who started what in 1948. I'll say it again. Terrorism's bad. Starving kids, bad. Bombing hospitals and schools, that's bad. All because theocracies, they don't govern for compromise. And opportunistic strongmen turning war zones into a branding opportunity, that's bad too. And that brings me to talk about what Trump's trying to do to remake the Holy Land into the Trump Jesus Holy Land, brought to you by OpenAI. Reporting this week is confirming that Indonesian President Subianto signaled Indonesia is prepared to contribute 8,000 troops to Gaza under this internationally coordinated framework that's tied to the U.S.-backed stabilization initiative, the Board of Peace. Indonesia's foreign ministry is saying that any deployment would require a UN mandate or a multi-international structure, like a Board of Peace, not unilateral control. But here's what's important about all of this. Indonesia is the world's largest Muslim majority country. It's huge, 280 million people. And why is that important? They don't recognize Israel as a state. They have no diplomatic ties with Israel. Its constitution explicitly is anti-colonial. And over again, it supports Palestinian statehood in UN votes. Long-standing positions. But suddenly, Jakarta is signaling that they are going to participate in Trump's Board of Peace with their $1 billion buy-in. $1 billion buy-in for Gaza reconstruction. I guess you can just buy your way out of these long-standing partnerships. Within weeks, we've seen Trump positioning himself as the broker of Gaza governance, competing directly with the UN. Indonesia is saying that they're going to contribute troops to help, all against the wishes of their constitution. And remember, we all saw that AI-generated video circulating where Trump had the resorts, the gold facade of Gaza, golden statues, luxury skylines, and Trump-branded aesthetics everywhere. We also know that the creator of the video said it was political satire. Satire that Trump loved and put out there as if it's a vision for the future. And in reality, look back to like 2024, Jared Kushner publicly saying that Gaza's waterfront property is very valuable and suggested that from a real estate perspective, it could be redeveloped. Gaza as a real estate perspective, not parody, not satire. This was Trump's own family, a senior advisor in the White House describing an active conflict zone in terms of asset value. Jared Kushner previously structured his Mideast diplomacy through economic normalization deals, the Abraham Accords, where development and trade, those were the central levers that he could pull. So when Trump comes right back in with his Board of Peace overseeing reconstruction, and Indonesia, 280 million people, Indonesia, a Muslim majority country, steps into the framework backing this Trump plan, you have to know what the incentives are. Gaza's population, 2 million people. And the World Bank saying that reconstruction costs in other conflict zones, they could go tens of billions, hundreds of billions, or even trillions of dollars. Infrastructure, port rehabilitation, housing reconstruction, because it's been bombed flat. A new energy grid, water systems, all of this to overcome decades of neglect and then bombing flat. And of course, whoever influences the framework influences the contracts. And the contracts have Trump's name written all over it. And whoever sits on this board with the $1 billion buy-in, they influence the oversight. So what does Indonesia get from this? Diplomatic engagement with Washington. We don't often deal with them as a country. they are directly going to be tied to reconstruction, more development. Crucially, defense cooperation leverage. And we're starting to see them maybe pull away from China. Strategic positioning. And the ability to say for Trump that a Muslim majority country is involved. A country that he would rail against if it weren't for $1 billion flowing his way. And what does this all add up to? Narrative control for Trump. And effing branding of the Holy Land in Trump's name. We've seen his business history and his takeover of DC and the White House with the gold everywhere. And it's all defined by licensing deals, his name on every building that he can find, and his family getting paid every step of the way. He's already previously blurred the lines of public diplomacy and private branding. He's repeatedly tried to put his name on everything he can. We've seen it over and over again, and now he's doing it internationally. Instead of the US tour, it's a world tour. And his AI imagery of golden statues and luxury towers, people love that because it aligns with how he thinks. Trump thinks in physical development, brand expansion. He speaks in art of the deal language, not in reality, not about a sensitive topic like what happens in Gaza, not when you have two theocracies battling for land. And for Gaza in post-war terms, it's going to be nothing more than gaudy gold resorts and golf clubs and a new golden calf. If this framework were truly transparent and UN-backed, sovereignty-centered, and insulated from all these private investors, countries like Indonesia participating, it could be legitimate. It could add legitimacy to this. But we know what's really happening behind the curtain. Reconstruction decisions are being made by private developers, politically connected contractors, and the Trump family lining their pockets. And all of these family-aligned networks building themselves up. Not what's best for the people of Gaza, what's best for the Trumps. Is this how the world's going to work now? Trump's business deals are more important than long-standing diplomacy? I mean, Palestine getting stabbed in the back by Indonesia. We've turned into a transactional environment that has nothing to do with humanitarian aid and humanitarian engagement. We're now in the phase of influence trading and ego building. Trump, he couldn't point to anything in Indonesia's foreign policy that says they're anti-colonial. He couldn't even point to Jakarta on a map if you asked him. He couldn't rattle off anything that's about the complexity in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. What he can talk about is how he's talked about himself, his leverage, his branding, and his positioning with more and more shiny gold crap. So when he puts a board together like this and recruits whatever country will pay him, whether or not they're an ally or not, the question is not about peace. It's about what it can do for him. Is it going to be a world based on self-sovereignty and civilian protection, or one built around his influence and branding? Gaza has now become a venue for strategic contracts and geopolitical repositioning and the lining of pockets. And we know it's going to cost a ton, but that cost isn't going to be paid by the board of the board of peace. It's going to be paid by the 2 million civilians that are going to be living there. And I'm here to tell you that peace is not a licensing agreement, and sovereignty is not a branding opportunity.
A corrupt congressman, his faithless henchwoman. Together they've sold justice to the highest bidder. But when a boy's death threatens their empire, they'll lie, bribe, kill to keep their secrets buried. Only one man remembers, and this time, the system's fixers are the ones getting fixed. A Death in Arcadia. Every secret has a price,